Alright, so this Knife Thoughts video is going to be comparing these two knives. This knife was loaned to me by a friend, and he's loaned a couple other knives before, so thanks as always to Joe for that. But these are two knives that I think are really great options for EDC and offer two different price ranges along with different materials. So let's get right into it. As always, please do check out my website at knifethoughts.com, where I'll post articles on knives like this, as well as hopefully an article comparing these two. And my social media, Instagram, Facebook, etc., all at Knife Thoughts. But what are these knives? Well, this is the Spyderco Emphasis, and this is the Spyderco Native 5. And when I hold these up, you can probably tell right away that they share some similarities. Now, they're not an exact match in design. Spyderco doesn't really make exact matches of their higher end models in their more budget-friendly models, or directly across to the Bird line, which is the non-Spyderco, like the sister line. But this is a Spyderco knife, and it's very similar, even though it's not the same as the Native 5. So the Native 5 is a classic EDC knife. A lot of people recommend it. I have carried this specific knife a whole lot, used it a whole lot, and it's a great EDC knife. It has just under a 3-inch blade, I think 2.95 inches, with about 2.5, just under 2.5 inches of edge. So it's not a huge knife. It fits in my hand really well, even though I have bigger hands. You can see this main grip area is pretty comfortable because it doesn't come to a hard point here. Your pinky finger can kind of hang off that side, and you can choke up. One thing that a lot of people talk about the Paramilitary 2 being a big knife, and it does have a bigger blade than this, but the main grip area on the Paramilitary 2 is actually not bigger than that of the Native, because the Paramilitary 2 has this upward turn towards the butt. So that's one thing to be aware of if you're thinking of getting a Native and you think, oh, you know, the Paramilitary 2 is just big enough for my hand on that main grip area. The Native will be too small. It won't. In fact, this Native handle is more comfortable for my hand than the Paramilitary 2. So a smaller knife like these aren't necessarily less comfortable in the hand. And honestly, when I checked this knife out, I was surprised to find that might even be more so true with this knife. So you can see the handle shapes are somewhat different. The choil, the 50-50 choil, is a little bit more emphasized on the Native 5. There is a little bit different handle shape in that the efficient handle is more rounded. The Native 5 has this finger divot and then a bump, and then kind of rounds up again towards the butt. And like I said, it is comfortable for me, but if that butt was bigger, it might not be. This knife doesn't have that, so it rounds off and it makes for a really comfortable handle. You definitely don't have to worry about, if you do have wide hands, you know, your pinky finger catching on that bump, because there is no bump. You can hold it, you know, really tightly and not have that bump digging into your finger. And then the 50-50 choil on this, I would say, interestingly, is a little bit less comfortable for me than on the Native 5, because it's actually thicker. So the space from, sorry, I was looking at the knives under my camera, the space from the top or the spine of the knife to the choil is less tall or less wide on the Native 5 than it is on the Efficient. So for me, in a pinch grip, it's still really comfortable, to be honest, but maybe slightly less secure feeling because this 50-50 choil isn't as emphasized. It's not as deep of a choil. So really nice handle. I was really surprised by how comfortable this handle is in the grip, and even in this pinch grip, even though it's less secure feeling. Also, the jimping on this doesn't help make it feel more secure, really. It's pretty light jimping, especially as compared to the very intense jimping that's on the Native 5. But it is a really comfortable handle. I was really impressed with how comfortable this handle feels in the hand. The G10 is pretty normal, nice feeling G10. It's similar to the G10 that you would have on a Tenacious or any knife like that, which a lot of people are probably more familiar with. And So the handles are although they're not exactly the same, they have similar characteristics in that even with bigger hands, you can grab this smaller, or I'm sorry, the main grip area or pinch grip. The blades are really similar. So you can see that the blade is both wider and slightly longer on the Efficient. Now the Efficient is like 0.01 or something inches longer than the Native according to Spyderco in the total blade length, as well as the sharpened edge. It's pretty much the same, so it's pretty much directly comparable. And this Native would have had a wider blade if it was new. I've sharpened a good bit of steel off of it. But even still, the Efficient, I think, has a taller, so in this direction, blade than the Native 5. So you do get ever so slightly more cutting edge, although I don't think you'll see a difference in performance, and a little bit more steel on it. The grinds are the same. They're both flat grinds as far as I can tell. And the shapes are pretty similar. There's no swedge on the emphasis, but that won't really affect performance. They're both pretty much leaf, well, they're like a hybrid between a spear point and a leaf shape and a drop point. Spyderco's blade shapes are kind of hard to define, to be honest. They're not necessarily traditional blade shapes, but somewhere between a drop point and a spear point and a leaf shape blade. I didn't check what Spyderco calls it because I've seen Spyderco call blade shapes different things on like different models of the same knife. So, you know, it's something between those kinds of blade shapes, but whatever blade shape it is, it's a really useful blade shape. It works for pretty much any kind of cutting. I've used this knife to cut a whole lot of cardboard, as you can see the scratches, or hopefully you can see them. You can use it for food prep, general EDC, camping, hunting even, whatever you want, this kind of blade shape's gonna work well for. Now, one thing that is different, you can see that the Native 5 has a 4-way position clip, whereas the Efficient is tip up only, but it is 2-way, so you can use it left-handed or right-handed. I don't think that's going to be a huge deal to most people because it seems like nowadays most people do prefer tip up, but it's just something to be aware of. If you prefer tip down, the Efficient doesn't give you that option. Both have lanyard holes, although I don't use lanyards on modern knives at all. I don't really see the point on a clip knife usually, but they both have them, although the lanyard hole is higher up on the Efficient. Now, one difference in design is that they're different locks. So the Native 5 is a Spyderco mid-lock. You can see it's in the middle of the handle because it's a smaller knife. You can still reach it to close one-handed really easily and open one-handed with the spider hole, which they both obviously have. But the Native 5 is a mid-lock, whereas the Efficient is a liner lock. Now, this liner lock is pretty easy to get to because of this nice big cutout. When Spyderco does these on handles, I actually haven't had too many knives that had this. I always wonder if it's going to make them feel more uncomfortable in the hand, but it doesn't for me on this at all, actually. It feels totally comfortable. Honestly, it might even make it slightly more comfortable because your finger isn't digging into this near side scale on the other side. So that makes this liner lock easy to get to. You just press it, close it, and it is easy to open one-handed and close one-handed. Now, the liner lock is used on most of Spyderco's budget line within the Spyderco brand. The Bird brand does use back locks like some of the higher end Spydercos, but different lock geometry and stuff, I think. But anyway, the liner lock is used on a lot of Spyderco's budget knives. I like it. I've used the Resilience a lot, and it's really worked well for me. Never had any issues with the lock. You can see this one locks up really well. No blade play in either direction. Even when unlocked, no blade play side to side. So really nice lock build there. It isn't super easy. Well, you can definitely open it with one hand very easily, but it's not as easy to flick open because of this big cutout. So you can't push straight up really because your thumb hits that cutout. So you have to push out, and you can do it, but it's not what I'm used to. as on other Spydercos. This, you know, you just press up. Of course, I'm gonna not do it when I try, but you just press up like so, and it's pretty easy to flick it out. You can do it, as I'll show again here, if you press out, but it is a little different than on Spydercos that don't have this cutout. So that's something that I think you would just get used to. It's not a big deal, but something that kind of threw me off slightly at first. You can see that this one is really well centered, so no issues there whatsoever. It is smooth. Now, I'm pretty sure that these have Teflon washers rather than phosphor bronze, but I'm not 100% sure. So if I'm wrong on that, yell at me in the comments, I guess. Either way, I don't have a problem. The Teflon washers, knives that I've had with Teflon washers have had no issues. I mean, Teflon is going to exist probably, you know, in the earth when we're all gone anyway, so not to get too, like, you know, off topic, but Teflon's going to last a long time. So I don't really have any problem if it is Teflon, although generally just for kind of like a weird aesthetic reason, I do prefer phosphor bronze washers. It looks to me like this uses an internal stop pin. You can see that bar right there is not moving as the blade opens, so it seems that that is the stop bar. There's a cutout in the blade which stops it, and that's why there's not a stop pin back here. So a little different than some of Spyderco's other budget knives like the Resilience and Tenacious, which if I remember correctly, I don't have one right now in my collection, but if I remember correctly, they do have a stop pin back here. So another slight difference from some of Spyderco's other budget knives to be aware of. But overall, like the other budget knives I've had from Spyderco, really well built, especially for the price. From what I've seen, like I said, this isn't my knife. From what I've seen, this knife is around $50. So a lot less expensive than, especially this knife, but a Native 5 is going to run you about $100. The Spyderco's prices did go up. The map or manufacturers, I can't remember what that means right now. Minimum advertised pricing is what that means. The minimum advertised pricing, it did go up slightly for Spyderco this year, but they're around $100 with the FRN handles. Now, I think that the G10 handles might be slightly more. They might be around 105 or 110, depending on the steel and everything like that. It can change a lot with the steel. But either way, the efficient is going to be a lot more money efficient. Maybe why it's called that. And also because of the size, it's a smaller knife. You fit a lot of blade into a really comfortable handle with, you know, just a 3-inch blade. And so you're getting a lot for your money at $50. One other difference that can make a difference to some people is the steel. Spyderco's Native 5 is in a bunch of different steels, but the standard one is a CPM S35VN. The efficient is in 8013 MOV. 8013 MOV is what you're going to find on most Chinese-made knives, which is where this knife is made compared to America for this knife. So not only the materials, but the location of manufacture is a big part of why it has that, you know, 100% price increase from this knife to this knife. But for me, the 8013 MOV, it's not a deal breaker. I do prefer higher end steels like CPM S35VN for sure. I'm not going to say that I don't prefer them, but I've used and carried and sharpened and enjoyed lots of knives with ACR13 MOV. It's a good steel, especially actually with this coating. The one thing, it can rust easier than a lot of other stainless steels. So the coating is nice actually, that you know, it's just the configuration that my friend has. They do make it without the coating, but I think it's a good option for this steel. But it's a steel that's not a great steel. It's not a high-end steel, but it is a steel that works really well and can be sharpened really easily. So if you're more concerned about sharpenability, then 8CR13 MOV should be fine. If you're really concerned about edge retention and stuff, then I think, you know, you might want to go with the higher end knife. But either way, it is a well-designed knife for sure. Very comfortable in the hand, as I've said. Very useful blade shape, easy to use, opening and closing. and just a really nice budget brother to, or cousin maybe, to the Spyderco Native 5. So if you like that design, but you want something a little bit more budget friendly, efficient for your dollars, the Spyderco Efficient might be a good option. As always, please do check out my website, knifethoughts.com, and my social media at Knife Thoughts, and subscribe to my channel here. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate everyone who watches, comments, and everything like that. And if you hit the bell, you'll get notifications when I post new videos. So please do that. It helps me out a lot. And don't forget, as always, to go out and do good.